Welcome to today's Explainer. We're about to go on a seriously fascinating journey together. We're going to scale all the way from the highly relatable, everyday struggles of modern dating and marriage, straight up to the profound, overarching purpose of corporate leadership. Now, I know that might sound like a massive leap, right? But as we'll see through the source material we're unpacking today, the foundation of a successful relationship and the foundation of a society-altering business are actually built on the exact same philosophical framework. Okay, let's dive right into this. We're starting with a massive modern dilemma. You see it literally all the time. Couples begin deeply in love, completely infatuated with one another, but eventually they drift apart and just collide. They start with the absolute best intentions, yet somehow the relationship stalls and breaks down. So why does this happen so frequently today? Well, here is our roadmap for the Explainer today. To figure that out, we'll look at the modern marriage dilemma, explore the concept of the missing spiritual guide, break down the 4 levels of happiness, compare an enterprise to a true business, and finally reveal why respect is the ultimate goal. All right, Section 1, the modern marriage dilemma, a crisis of direction in the digital age. The source points out that the digital age has really hyper-segmented our lives. We've got our own highly specific tastes, our own isolated digital bubbles, and there's this strong cultural push toward prioritizing personal satisfaction above pretty much everything else. Because of this, couples often marry based on superficial attraction or maybe just a temporary overlap in their lifestyle. But here is the critical flaw. Without a shared overarching life direction, a grander purpose they're actually moving toward together, they inevitably clash. When that initial thrill fades, the differences in their fundamental life paths just create massive friction. Moving on to Section 2, the missing spiritual guide. What exactly changed in how we find our partners? Think about it. In the past, matchmaking for prominent families wasn't just about swiping right. It was guided by spiritual leaders, monks, priests, shamans, who deeply assessed the fundamental philosophy and life direction of the families involved. They looked at what the individuals were actually equipped to handle. Today, however, the source notes that matchmaking has kind of devolved. It relies on mere fortune-telling, astrology like Saju, or completely superficial conditions like how much wealth the family has. We've totally lost that deep philosophical compatibility check. And the source issues a very stark warning here. Entering into a prominent family, like a massive corporate family, requires you to study and genuinely understand your exact role. If you just marry for the money or the status without equipping yourself with the right foundational mindset, it will literally ruin your life. Communication breaks down, you won't be able to support your partner's grander mission, and eventually the business itself can stall because the household lacks harmony and a shared purpose. Which brings us to Section 3, the 4 levels of happiness. This is the climb from physical survival to ultimate purpose. First, we absolutely have to understand a concept called yoksang. This is the foundational, physical level of life. It's essentially basic, animalistic survival and accumulation. The source notes that merely feeling good here, like enjoying a really nice meal, spending money, or feeling initial physical attraction, is very often mistaken for true happiness. But it's not. It's just the absolute bare beginning. It's a 2-dimensional energy state. If a relationship or even a business stops here, it's never going to reach true fulfillment. So, how do we level up? This builds into a really fascinating dimensional ascension based on the Jungbub framework. You start at that physical survival level, which is just pleasure. But when you start using your position to actually benefit others, you generate a 7th-dimensional quantum energy called joy. Then when you lead and guide those joyful people, that energy condenses into an 8th-dimensional state called gladness. And finally, you reach the apex, the 9th dimension, which is true happiness. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is the stark contrast between joy and happiness. Joy is a fantastic state, for sure. It comes from helping others and seeing them genuinely like you for the benefit you've provided. But true happiness? That's an entirely different, higher density energy. It's the 9th dimensional state achieved only when you are completely and utterly respected by the people you lead or the partner you are with. You can't buy respect, and you definitely can't force it. It has to be earned through a life lived for the benefit of others. Let's pivot to Section 4, enterprise versus true business. We're going to apply this exact ascension model to corporate leadership. Watch how perfectly this emotional ascension connects to the corporate world and high-level leadership. The source makes a fascinating distinction here that society honestly conflates all the time. There is a massive, fundamental difference between managing an enterprise and running a true business. An enterprise, or mere management, is entirely focused on physical growth, accumulating money, gathering talent, expanding the physical footprint. It is literally the corporate equivalent of yukseng, that basic physical survival level we just talked about. A true business, however, is focused on societal contribution through welfare, true education, and true culture. Think back about 30 years ago. Leaders were rightly called managers of enterprises because they were in the building phase. They were laying the foundation. But consider the end result if today's leaders only focus on blind physical growth. They will inevitably get stuck. The source points out that a lot of modern corporate mergers aren't necessarily these brilliant strategic moves. They are often just forced survival tactics because the enterprise failed to evolve past the physical growth stage. Only a true business actually reaches ultimate fulfillment. So why exactly are these massive enterprises getting stuck and facing these crises? Well, it's because, just like those modern marriages we discussed at the beginning of this explainer, they lack the spiritual leadership and philosophical education required to guide their amassed power. They've gathered immense wealth and top-tier talent, but they're missing the core societal purpose of why they gathered it in the first place. Endless physical expansion without a cultural or educational mission ultimately just leads to a dead end. And that brings us to Section 5, respect, the ultimate goal. Let's unify relationships, leadership, and true happiness. This is the absolute ultimate condition for reaching that ninth-dimensional energy state. Whether you're navigating a marriage with your partner or steering a massive multinational corporation, doing good deeds will absolutely bring you joy, and it will bring you followers who like you. But only earning deep, unwavering respect brings true, lasting happiness. If a leader uses their enterprise to actually fund true education and culture, the people will respect them, and that leader will experience unparalleled happiness. The exact same dynamic applies to a husband and wife supporting a shared, noble life direction. I really want to leave you with this final, profound thought from the text to reflect on regarding your own life's trajectory. Whether you're currently choosing a life partner, building out your career, or running a whole company, ask yourself, are you operating at that basic, two-dimensional level of yukseng, just chasing fleeting pleasure and physical growth? Or are you actively finding ways to benefit others, to create true culture, and to walk the high path toward earning true respect? It's an incredibly powerful framework for evaluating our daily choices. Thanks so much for joining me for today's explainer, and keep aiming for that ninth dimension.